Hey, I'm Carmichael. I'm a fairly new dungeon master, and I've made this series to talk about my experience jumping from being a player in Dungeons & Dragons to a dungeon master. Originally, the idea is to give my normal dungeon master a break. He doesn't get to play that often. Now I'm falling in love with it, and I really want to make my own campaign on this channel. And so this series is to talk about that experience leading up and prepping for a brand new show. We're going to talk about a few things that I've done to prep my maps, and we're going to go over 4 major tips that I think are important for new dungeon masters like myself. So I'm not a cartographer. I've spent a lot of time as a kid drawing, and I got really good at it. So I understand how to draw. For my players specifically, let's see. So I have spellcasters, so they need to be able to take a step back and take cover if they need to. What? The garbage man. So I have spellcasters who need to be able to take a step back, take cover if they need to, and cast their spells. I have a fighter who needs to be able to run up and engage hardcore. And I also have a rogue who's going to skirmish around and take people out and flank, so there's got to be room for that. Thankfully, the rogue is a mouseling, so they can literally almost go anywhere. Because I have a mouseling rogue who can see in the dark, and other various characters who can see in the dark, and some that can't, I'm going to talk about dark vision as well. So I chose to draw my maps out. Let's talk about the very first encounter that I mentioned in the last episode, which is the Goblin Ambush. Next, we're going to jump over to the big boy, the Goblin Cave, which we're going to go more in depth on the second session episode next week. Subscribe so that way you can keep up with the series and keep up with the sessions as I go through them. As we're breaking down this cave or mini dungeon, I'm going to talk about a few tips that I think are important for new DMs. Let's talk about maps. I have regional, town, and a couple encounters. One that was not shown in the module, but was written and described, so that kind of just had to come out of thin air. Thankfully, there was a lot of people online who had versions of their own that I could lean on, since it was literally my first encounter. And then there's the encounter that was shown with a map in the module. It's kind of like the first dungeon, like a baby dungeon, a mini dungeon. And that's just the Goblin Hideout Cave. So let's go over that in here, talk about things that I learned, the ways that I approached it, and we can go over those tips too. So regional map, super quick, moved up to the road, onto the trail, and into the town. This is just for reference, nothing really else. I based it off this map right here, flipped upside down. It worked this way in my mind, and so I just stuck with it. There we go, and then we jump to the town. This is Phandalin, the main town that the party has been going in and out of right now. It'd be nice if they stay here, who freaking knows? Now that I've said that, I probably jinxed it, made the larger version right there. It's pretty much the same. I even went for the details of the hills, because why the heck not? I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew that there's roofs, and I try to stylize the roofs very similar across the board. All the roofs in my mind should look almost identical, unless there's something uniquely wrong with it. That way, if there is something unique, it stands out. If every roof was slightly different, then in my mind, I think nothing is eye-catching for the players. Pretty much all I can get into on this map. Nothing unique on my end, and I'm still trying to understand and wrap my head around how to design towns to my liking. But we're going to jump a little further the other way to the first encounter, the Goblin Ambush. So we have this. Our heroes travel down the road. Once they get roughly around here where the dead horses are, the goblins will sneak up and shoot arrows at them. The biggest thing I learned here is that a path is about 1 square, a trail is about close to 2 squares. So you could get a wagon through a trail, but you can't get it through a path. So like right here, this could be interpreted as a path. This is where the footprints led off into the cave. Things that I think that make this look good. We have repeatable images and clear lines. So I have the main road, which looks like a road because I placed dirt little specks of dirt on top of having grass on both sides of it. The steep hill, I kind of went for something that meant incline with the big strokes, and then with a thinner pen, I went for smaller strokes. And I can just say what I interpret the height is. It's like half a square, 10 feet. A full square is 20 feet. We have brushes and trees. The brushes, I used my normal 1-inch circular tokens to trace with a pencil, and then I just did the roundy bits freehand. And then occasionally I would mess with it and make it all funky like. But then for the big ones, I have a large circle token, and I just traced that with a pencil, so I got the big ones and the small ones. Perfect. Now, let us go over the cave. And I'm gonna go in more depth on what the party did in the cave in the next video. This solely gonna be talking about some of the key functions that I put into this and designed with what the module had in mind for it. Right off the bat, I wanna point out that I numbered these pages. I got 1-inch grid is perfect. I got a stack of 500 of these. When the players come in, they're only gonna see this. When the players enter this page, what they're going to see are similar cues to the previous one. Small circle greenery, so they're instantly going, okay, there's brush, there's grass, that looks like dirt, and I guess that's similar to incline or dirt. This looks like moving water, and I, the DM, confirm this is moving water and this is a little bit of dirt. So they got that figured out. And then they got thickets and brush right here. I also, this is the first time I was doing it, but I made it thicker, border lines. I was playing around with depth here to make it look a little bit cooler. Kind of doesn't matter. Eventually I just gave up on that and just made it thick lines. But there you go. As they come up here, I reveal this. I like the idea of revealing more and more as they're moving around. Well, when they have to go up into the cave, we have this. And I'm really just, when I make these connections, I just try to find the right points to make the spot work. And you can see how small objects like boxes and barrels and beds, rocks, are very easy. You could just see it yourself. You can see the look and style of the room. And it's so satisfying to have a sense of this place is real. The border lines are the thickest, and that really does help make it pop and go, this is the space, not this empty. And a big point of adding those dirts and waves in the water, honestly, it helps prioritize this space because it's more visually interesting. So something I want to talk about super quick is floors. I think this is the most valuable thing I learned while doing in drawing. I think it is not talked about a lot. You kind of assume it when you're seeing like Dwarven Forge stuff and other minis, but this is really cool. So I designed it so my heroes will go up this way and there's a goblin chilling up here. Either my players can climb the wall or go around to come back to this bridge. So this bridge is 30-foot ceiling. So this bridge is 15 feet higher. If they climb up and go over here, I will reveal to them new tunnels. This was so satisfying. Like just by looking at it when I was drawing, I was like, bloop. I was like, that's so cool. When they saw it for the first time, they had that same reaction. They're like, okay, we climb up and okay, bloop. You revealed new space. I love this. It's so cool. Or they came back around this way. I would just show them this. Like, you're still on this floor. You're not up here anymore. I think one of the coolest things you can do is make multiple floors through two-dimensional drawings. It's a lot of work, and the biggest things that I think that make this work, trying your best to repeat certain elements that are visible by one floor or most 2 floors difference. For example, we have a similar bridge. I tried to replicate similar points of the dirt and the water and the steps, and that's it. Everything else can be slightly different, but I wanted it to feel like it's the same space, just more to it. If they were to go up one more floor, if there was room in the space, I would probably remove this bottom and just have this bridge and maybe some of this tunnel. So let's look at what the actual map looked like. This is what the actual map looked like. Every square is 5 feet narratively. I just matched it. I counted it 1 for 1. I go, how many squares are across here? And then I counted that across and then up and down. And I did a simple pencil line, like no curves. Can't even erase most of it. Like, and some of the pencil work right here, which is just a straight line. And from there, I just took my pen when I wanted to do my line work, and I followed what felt like cave, imperfect. It's just, and then I took the big pen and made that thicker on the outside, not the inside, because I don't want to ruin the spacing on the inside. All right, lastly, I want to talk about lighting my cave and lighting your map. And it's really hard to talk about lighting when you don't like do lighting as a profession. Like if you're a cinematographer on set for a movie, lighting is your business. You know how to talk about lighting, how to describe lighting. When you're playing D&D with your friends, they don't care about the photons and the reflective surfaces. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm being ignorant, who knows? You don't really have to worry about that. The biggest thing is, you know, the darkness, dim light, and bright light rules in the book. I forgot when I was playing, I forgot about those rules, and I didn't understand what dim light and dark vision did. And I was just like, fine, you guys see up to 60 feet, sure. Looking back, oh, I could have played that way better. So let's just go over a basic like D&D cinematography lesson. Normal vision. Normal vision in D&D means bright light. That's normal perception. Mechanically, that's just rolling perception normally. Dim light is the edge of that bright light. Mechanically, what that means is your perceptions or investigations are at disadvantage. You can think of like the edge of torchlight or during twilight. Torchlight, for example, is 20 feet narratively. Mechanically for you, when you're drawing your map, that's 4 squares, 4 inches. And then the next 4 inches out from that are dim light. Darkness or obscure vision, darkness like thick fog, no light whatsoever, or dense foliage, is 0 visibility. You might as well be blind and mechanically suffering the blind condition. If your players have dark vision, essentially that just levels up their ability. Normal bright light is still mechanically perception, basic perception. Dim light, though, has been upgraded from disadvantage to normal, and then darkness has moved from blind to disadvantage. And that's within their 60 feet limit, 12 squares. There's an even better dark vision that's like 120 feet, 24 squares, but that normally comes with a disadvantage in bright light. And my fighter is a drow, so technically she gets disadvantage in bright light. And let's talk about stealth. Like, there's no mechanical understanding of being stealthy other than the group's stealth check versus the passive perception to the NPCs. Makes sense? Okay, now my rogue wanted to stealthily attack somebody in the dark. Does that ruin everyone else's stealth? Hey, if you guys are acting stealthily, you're essentially using the hide action. Hide mechanic is you roll your stealth check against the passive perception, and if you succeed, you're essentially invisible, you're unseen. What breaks the hide action is what would break the party's stealth. Okay, that makes sense. Often, like, I want to do the hide action. Well, there's nothing really to hide behind. Well, is it dark in this room? Is it hard to see in this room? Yeah. Well, then I would like to take a step back and hide in the shadows. I want to hide in the darkness. Okay, that's the logic. With the hide action, if you reveal yourself by attacking, whether it's a hit or miss, you're revealed. So stealthily, if you reveal yourself through attacking or by ways of providing light, the act of hiding in the shadows disappears. That's as simple as that. Since rogues can do hide as a bonus action, I'll say, go ahead and go do your stealth attack and use your bonus action to hide. Every time you hide after a stealth kill, the DC is going to get higher and higher and higher. Makes sense? That caps him from being assassinating the whole dungeon ahead of everyone, but that also allows him to enjoy the ability to sneak attack through the shadows. That, coexisting with dark vision and lighting, is very important to understand running a game in these caves and dungeons. Like, I'm gonna be very specific about my lighting in the future, especially with characters that do not have dark vision. I want them to rely on those who do, and which means those who have dark vision, I have to make sure have to rely on those who don't have dark vision for solving certain puzzles in the dark. I think that's an interesting goal to try to achieve. I'm looking forward to it. Next episode, I'm gonna go over the second session, which is the session that is in this cave, and you'll be able to get a lot more context to what my players actually did in here, what I prepared, such as, you know, the baddies, the bosses, the loot, the NPCs that are in here, and even the traps. I want to give a big shout out to my patrons who make this channel what it is. If you want to support this channel, just $2, $4, whatever you want, subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And remember, go outside, and I'll see you next week. Is that a good catchphrase? I'm not sure yet.